Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is your host always. Um, and this was a, kind of a last minute. I just got hit up by their PR earlier this morning. But it's been kind of in the works, but it fell that you were free today, Arsun, and we're here. Oh, wait, you're in New York, right?
Yeah,
Are you guys prepping for this crazy storm that's supposed to hit tomorrow?
I didn't even realize that there
Uh,
is a storm supposed to hit tomorrow. Is there?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
really? It's
yeah.
really nice out lately.
Yeah, it's not like yesterday it was like 50, but yeah, we had to cancel our event tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, we're supposed to get I think we're like right on the cusp where we might be getting like one of those somewhere between 3 inches and a foot and a half or something stupid. Like you're like
That's fun.
we're right on the water. So the wind blows a little bit, it goes crazy. But Arson, you're on the show because you got a debut album. Babe, I Hear Thunder in Your Heart. Is it out now or is it
No,
okay?
the title track just came out about a week ago. The
Yep.
title track, Babe, I Hear Thunder in Your Heart. And the full record should be out in like a month or so.
Okay. Yeah, because I the release said it was winter 2024, and I'm like, well, that's pretty vague. That could be out, could be waiting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it's actually just listening to that, and what's the other track is on the Dark Water's Edge. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, got a real like Dylan flair to it. I feel like.
I'm a big fan of Dylan and a
Yeah,
lot of that kind of music, so and a lot of just like traditional style music in general that he was actually very inspired by and so I kind of comes out, I guess.
yeah. Well, you're a younger dude. Do you find that there's fewer people into that sort of music your age group, or
Um, I don't know if there's fewer people into that music. Like, for example, all of the people that I know are into a very wide range of music.
Mhm.
So they do like that kind of thing. They don't necessarily make that kind of thing, but a lot of people, I think, like it. But depends who you talk to, really, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I found my music tastes have always been kind of like eclectic, but they've very much mellowed as I got older,
Yeah.
you know, where it's like, oh, mosh pit's not really, a good thing anymore now that you've destroyed your knees doing other things. And so, not as angry anymore. Now I'm just tired.
Yeah, in high school, I kind of made more like punk style music in
Yeah.
a weird way. And then I don't know, I just gravitated towards this kind of thing. But got a bunch of songs that I'm working on that are completely other styles. I mean, when uh when the entire record comes out, you'll if you listen to it, you'll see that goes through a bunch of different styles. And these two last songs are very much in that kind of like earthy kind of like it's either blues or it's kind of this like roundabout song form that's used in a lot of older music. But yeah,
It,
um
it's interesting because, like, I think now where, I mean, genres of music are almost non existent now because people have, you know, kind of crossbred music so much to the point where you can't even classify music anymore. But I think it frees up a lot of people. What God, I think it was Andre 5000 just put out an album that's like flute music or something like
yeah,
really weird.
I haven't even listened to it yet. I gotta listen to it. Outcast, one of my like favorite things of the 2000s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
great.
just love that, he's like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, and everyone's like, yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah,
Where I feel like 20 years ago it would be like a career ender where people would just be like, he's lost it.
maybe, but I mean, Andre 3000's pretty out there. Maybe it would have been cool back then too.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
So
Yeah, Bob Dylan did a lot of crazy moves as well throughout
yeah,
his career.
he actually he played a concert up here um like way back in the day, and I think one of his album covers was shot here in Plymouth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's this old um I mean kind of a mixed use hall called Memorial Hall and Dylan played here in the '60s. His son was here with the Wallflowers maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh, cool.
It's this little. It's not little. They just redid like the sound system. It's a nice, bigger, intimate place. If that makes any sense. Like it's not
Yeah.
a stadium by any stretch of the imagination,
That's
but
like one of the big concert hall type places.
yeah, but it's also one
Yeah.
of those like
Well,
when you go there, you're like, oh, this was not well laid out.
that's
Where like
funny.
half of all the seats are basically facing each other and not the stage.
Oh, weird. Interesting.
Yeah, so like you're like spending half of the time just with your head cocked to one side.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So do you play music too?
So back in the day, I was actually voted class musician in high school.
Oh, nice.
Um, and at the time I was headed into art school and was kind of like, oh, am I going to devote my time to music or to art? And I
Hmm.
kind of gave up music at that point.
Yeah.
But I've always loved music and kind of now is to the point where I'm like kicking around the idea of like picking up the guitar again.
Oh, that's
Not
sick. That's
not to
cool.
like not to play out anywhere, but just to kind of noodle around at home and decompress after work, that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's to me, I think that's like every creative person's struggle. Like you have this thing that you love to do that you have to do. And then you're like, I can make this a career. And then it becomes a career. And you're like, shit, now the thing I love to do
Yeah.
is work.
Well, I don't know. When I started playing guitar, I was pretty much like immediately, I was just like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. I like picked it up, started playing. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be my job. I really like this.
But do you ever get to
But
that point where you're like, because I mean, it can't all be the fun parts. Like there has to be that the
well,
bullshit part where
probably
you're getting
like
interviewed on a podcast, that kind of.
no, this is the fun part too. This is
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I've never really done podcasts and that kind of thing before, so it's nice to do it. But the probably the hard part is like probably the hard part is the creative part
Yeah.
and also the like having to be so multifaceted as a musician. Like you got to make the video, you got to
Yeah.
oversee the album thing, you got to do all the marketing, you got to try to figure out the content, which is cool. It's like it is what it is, whatever. But but other than that, like from the actual creative part, it's probably just, writing the songs is at least for me. I know some people like write a million songs every single day, but for me, the writing songs is the hard part because it's kind of like you have to read a bunch, you've got to listen to a lot of music, you've got to like sit down and because the way that I do it is I just like sit down and think about it and try and try and try hours, 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 hours. And then, you know, you go for a walk, you forget about it for a second, and then you come back home and you try again. And like all of those 30 hours of trying to do it all of a sudden pays off in like 15 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
At least that's
No,
how
I
it
know
works for
exactly.
me.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like
The
where
minute you take your eyes off of it, that's when it becomes good.
yeah, yeah, it's like that. You'll
Yeah.
be in the middle of a conversation with someone, and then you'll be like, "Oh my god, I know what I need to do," and then be like, "What?"
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "No, I was listening to you, but I was just thinking of something else," you know.
Yeah.
And then you have to like make a note because I have a very good but also very bad memory, so I have to like make notes of shit. I carry
Yeah.
like a notebook
Oh
because
man, I forget stuff all the time. It's ridiculous. I should be writing notes all the time.
yeah,
But
carry a notebook. It's
yeah.
of everyone's getting this is that's also one of those that makes me feel old. Like I'll bust out a notebook and people be like, you can do that on your phone, right? And I'll be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I never look at that. Like I've made notes in my phone and just have never ever gone back to them.
Yeah, I like switching around with stuff. Like I like using the notes on my phone. And then I like trying to I have very bad handwriting, but I try to like write as well.
Yeah,
But then I'll also like if that's getting a little too monotonous, then I'll like use a typewriter or I'll try something else or use just even like a different app on my computer. Instead of using notes, I'll use Pages or something. I'm just like try to switch it up all the time just to so like I'm not looking at the same thing all the time in a weird way. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I get it because it's like I can get very bored of working on one thing.
Mm.
So if I have multiple things going on and be like, all right, I'm bored of that, I can put that aside and I'll work on this for a bit and I'll get bored of that and then go back to the first thing. And I think it lends itself to that kind of working really hard on something, but then setting it aside and then working on something else, but your brain subconsciously still working
Yeah, it's
on
like you're
that initial
processing all
problem.
that stuff. Yeah. I mean, also with me in writing, it's just like I have to put a lot of time into like reading different books, reading different things, listening to stuff because I feel like if my like I'm not like filled with different things, then nothing's gonna come out. I have to really get to the point where I can just treat it so much as a job where I just can like come home, write a couple things, not
Yeah.
care, but
Do
trying to get there.
do you have that kind of routine where like you know you're like I'm gonna write 20 minutes a day every single day
Well,
or
I I don't necessarily have that routine, but I practice a lot.
mm-hmm.
So, but it's a weird thing where sometimes it's almost like your technical practice will get in the way of your creativity or some it's not saying that practicing is bad, but sometimes I'll spend days practicing on technique or something like that or a new thing that I'm trying to learn, a new style. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I'll be like, wait, I haven't even tried to write a song in days. Like it's crazy. So, but it's like I get in like a different mood. Like sometimes I'm like in the mood where it's like, I will write this song and I'm gonna put as many hours as I need until it happens. And then other times I get into the other zone where I'm like bugging about technique. And then I also have a recording studio where and I have all the equipment and do a lot of that kind of stuff myself as well. So then sometimes I'm focused on that
There's a
stuff,
whole
but
nother rabbit hole that you can get stuck in. Yeah.
it's a terrible rabbit hole, honestly. It's
Yeah.
like crazy, especially I'm very into like recording styles where you kind of record the entire band at once, as
Mm-hmm.
little microphones as possible, one take, and all like analog equipment. I
So you try to
used
get
to,
that real like live experience of the music and not so
yeah,
polished.
yeah, not so polished, but also like, it's also just a thing where it's like, damn, if I can't play the song good enough with all the time in the world on a recording, like, then the song is not ready, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's also another thing. And trying to make it as good as possible with as least little stacking as possible is really important to me as well. So there's
What
just
do you mean by stacking? Like
like overdubbing,
oh okay. All right.
like but recently I've switched from using tape for actually tracking. I used to use tape for tracking all the time, but now I've switched to like a radar system, which
Okay.
is kind of like a cool. It's like a like digital converters. I basically like use the digital converters from this old box called a radar that has very, very nice converters in it that um I have it interfaced with Pro Tools. So now I do use Pro Tools, which has pretty much unlimited tracks you can
Right.
add. But I still mix down to tape a lot. But I try to keep everything as simple as possible in the recording and mixing.
When you're doing stuff like that, because it makes me think of like if I'm if I'm working on a drawing, like a lot of times I'll start and I'll be like, oh, this looks like shit. but I also have enough experience where I go, I'm not done, so I have to continue to work on it because you can pull it back and bring out the kind of drawing that you want. But at some point, there's this point where you're like, you have to stop because then otherwise, like, there's like this key point where you need to stop because then you go down a decline and you just make it look worse. Like, how do you find that sweet spot of like, oh, I can add another track or another instrument or another harmony? Like, where do you like? Okay, this is how do you call it done?
Well, I mean, a lot of the time, the way my recordings work is that I go into the studio with my band. I've usually got a pretty full-on idea of what I want it to sound like.
Yeah,
We go, we perform and we perform and we try to get a take. And there's been times where I go through an entire day, we do a bunch of takes, and I pick out the best one and I go home and I listen to it and I'm like, just not that good. So I just throw it away and I just go start it again. And it's basically I'm only even going to start with something if I go home and listen to the next day and I'm like, wow, this is great. And then at that point, I start thinking about a lot of music that I like and what I listen to and where maybe it sounds too sparse or where maybe that's sparseness is really magical or something.
yeah.
And then I'll go and I'll try to add things to it. And there's a this like for example this song that I just put out, Babe, I Hear Thunder in Your Heart. There was going to be horns over the section where there's kind of like a guitar solo,
Hmm.
kind of back up the guitar solo. I did a bunch of things. I added pedal steel on there. I added horns. I added other guitars. I added slide guitar, just so many different things. And, you know, you just listen to it. And, if you put it on and you're at home and you're like outside of the recording, you haven't listened to a couple days, it's usually just jumps right out at you like, damn, that sounds bad.
Yeah,
And then, that's kind of it. And with this song, I tried all this different stuff. And then a couple days later, I just put on the track with just the live stuff that we recorded because that song's completely live. That I don't even think there's any overdubs on that song. And we were like, this sounds good. No need to add anything to it.
yeah,
It's what it is. So for me, that's just a lot of trial and error. It's like you kind of have to waste the time to know.
yeah. And that's one of those where like I get what you're saying, but to call it a waste is unfair because it's kind of part of the process.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, there's do you know who Adam Savage is
Adam Savage.
from the
Yeah,
Mythbusters?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he does like a lot of YouTube content and he talks about how when you're trying to figure out what to paint something, like what color to paint something, he's like, paint it the completely wrong color that you know is wrong.
Mm,
Because then you're like, oh, it's not bright orange. It should be this shade of green or whatever. Have you ever
that's pretty
had that?
smart.
Yeah, like have you ever had that moment where you like put in, slide guitar or something, and you're like, oh, that's not right. It needs this instead. It needs a harmonica part. That's what I was missing. Like, have you ever kind of experienced
Yeah,
the audio version of that?
yeah, totally. That happens. I mean, the thing is, and that happens especially for me when I'm playing it myself
Yeah.
and trying to add that element myself. Like if I'm adding a guitar part onto something and I can just see that it's not like feel that it's not working,
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, like all the other possibilities will jump into my mind much better because it's like, okay, this string instrument is out of the question. Like it just is so alien in this part that something else pops up. But I think at the end of the day, unless I specifically have something like horns or something like that in mind,
Yeah.
it's not that difficult because 90% of the success of the track in terms of like, is it good or bad? comes down to how well we played it just as the rhythm section,
Yeah.
so usually those things aren't too hard to figure out if you go into it with the mindset of like, we're just going to play this and this is the song.
Yeah.
Everything else after that is supplemental. It's only when you go into a recording session being like, oh yeah, well, let's add, this sounds a little thin. Like we'll add like three more guitars there, or like, oh yeah, well that we can fix that in the mix. It's like, no, you can't fix anything in the mix. It should sound mixed already, like as
And
soon
it
as you finish.
and it's one of those things where it's like if you're like, oh, we'll just add another guitar, oh, we'll add an organ, oh, we'll add this. I mean, at some point, the whole point of it is to be played out live, and every time you
Yeah.
add something, you're like, all right, that's another person that's going to be on stage, or it's not going to
Yeah,
sound as full.
totally.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of my songs have like horn parts and string parts and stuff, so I'm pretty used to playing different like configurations of the song and trying to make different versions that work live. Like, for example, I have a song Southern Winds
yeah,
that that is just impossible to play live. It's like too many horn. I actually did it once. I got a whole horn section to come play, but you can't do that all the time. So
right,
we
yeah, yeah.
have to make a completely different version of it. And yeah, it's just I've been there before. It's like you open Pro Tools, you're working on a track, and you just see 30 tracks, and you're like, song must not be very good if there's 30 tracks.
Just keep dressing it up. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if another 15 tracks are gonna save this one.
and it's I feel like music in general kind of runs in that cycle where it's like it'll go from like a stripped down sound in the 60s and then like into like disco and more electronic music in through the 80s, and then it kind of hits a peak where everyone's like, nope, we're done, and then jumps right back to like almost the roots of it, like with grunge in the 90s, and then it kind of like builds back up again, and it just kind of seems to run through this cycle where every once in a while people are like, no, 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 let's just play rock and roll, couple guitars, drum,
Yeah,
so
yeah, it does happen. I mean, I really like music from pretty much all eras and, time and place for everything, but it's like everyone says, like the best ideas are just like those ideas that like come fast and you know exactly what to do, and that's like where all the magic happens a
yeah.
lot of the time.
And especially if
I
you have that collaborator that you can kind of like work with, that almost like you go, oh, you know what I mean, like that thing, and they're like, oh yeah, 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 like you have that weird
Yeah,
shorthand where you don't even have to finish sentences when the other person's like, yep, I know what you mean.
totally.
Yeah,
Totally, yeah. I have a great guitar player. He's very creative as well. I mean, I pretty much write all of my songs on acoustic guitar and have like a very full idea of what I want, but he's really good at like taking the vibe that I'm in and doing exactly the right licks for it and playing in the right way. And he's learned a bunch of different instruments now and can play pedal steel or
I don't know.
all these different things. And it's great to work with talented people. It's really excellent.
I didn't. I don't remember if it said. Are you in New York City or somewhere else in New York
I'm
State?
in New York City.
City?
Yeah,
Because that's what I was thinking, and then I was listening to music, and I'm like, oh, it's weird. I don't think of New York as like having a folk scene, but I mean, it's New York. It probably has a scene for everything, I would think.
probably does. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different people making different music in New York. I don't specifically know anyone in New York that's making very folky stuff, very similar to me, I would say. But there's a lot of people making cool stuff. So, you
Yeah.
know, I just went and saw a friend of mine play the other day, and he was like doing some weird kind of like musical, it's like a music play thing or something where he had like a bunch of people on stage, and it was kind of like theatrical, but
Oh, interesting.
music and kind of
Yeah.
like Velvet Underground-y. It was pretty cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Like I love that there's a scene for that kind of thing. On like Boston would probably have it, but where we are on the South Shore, we're kind of like halfway between Boston and Rhode Island,
Yeah.
or Boston and Providence, I should say. And like I was talking to this guy, and he's like, "Oh, he's like, I want to work with you guys, and I do like these Shakespearean rap stand-up comedy type." And to the point where I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, like, or how you
Yeah.
want us to work with you. But it just had that kind of like real experimental theater music kind of vibe to it. I'm like, you're just in the wrong area. Like, it's unfortunate, but like,
Yeah.
we just don't have that kind of crowd around here. It's,
Yeah. 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 New York's music scene has actually started up more lately. I think it was a little people weren't really going to shows much before like COVID and stuff, and afterwards it kind of picked back up, you
yeah,
know, for
yeah.
some
We
reason.
have a very specific scene. It's very jam bandy.
Oh, cool.
Was it someone a friend of mine called it white suburban reggae?
That's funny.
Um, but I mean, it's a ton of talented musicians, and
Yeah,
it's I love it. And that's part of why I love living here is pretty much any night of the week you can go downtown and see someone playing.
that's so cool.
Which, yeah, most, New York has that, but most towns in America, don't have that, and so it's just nice
Yeah, totally.
to live in a creative space. Do you feel? Are you a New York native?
Yeah. Yeah, I was born here.
Okay, that's gonna not help my question. I was gonna say,
Well, I mean, I went to a school. My high school was LaGuardia for like performing arts. So I even got to grow up around
oh,
like a
that's
lot of different
cool.
musicians and
Yeah,
artists and whatever else they have there, actors and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, we're
Just
we're currently kind of in the midst of moving our offices, and right now we're in a building with a bunch of therapists, which probably should be more helpful. Um, but the idea of like possibly moving into a space that shared with like a recording studio or something is just so appealing because it's just there's something different about working with or being in a space with other creative people that you can, even when you're just shooting the shit, it's
Yeah,
a different kind of conversation, and
totally.
it's
I
less
mean,
about
even though
like
I,
the weather and
yeah,
how's a family, and it's just weird conversations.
yeah. Even though I didn't necessarily like feel like I had the most fruitful education or like it just LaGuardia wasn't like an amazing school or anything, but all the people there really made the difference with the whole music thing. I don't know that I would have even been playing music today if I wasn't around all those people all the time, learning different types of music, being recommended cool bands. I mean, I remember in like high school, like a friend being like, "Oh, King Crimson's really cool," or "Oh, check out the Beach Boys" or something. And I was like, "Oh, that's sick." So, you know,
So
definitely
how did
brought
you
it a far
end
way.
up in a performing arts high school? Like, was it, are your parents performers of some kind, or?
My No, they're not performers. My dad's a photographer,
Oh, okay, that's a
and
creative.
my mom is creative in a lot of ways, but she like mostly now does like ceramics and stuff. So
Sure.
they're both pretty creative people. But just growing up, my dad and my grandfather always used to like play guitar a little bit, like just as a hobby or something.
Yeah.
And probably around like 12 or 13 years old, I decided to start learning guitar and started listening to music. And I was like, wow, this is great. So I immediately was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I really like it. So I learned a couple difficult pieces on guitar, applied to LaGuardia, got in, and just took it from there.
That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't really, there wasn't much like run up to it or thought about it. Yeah, I just decided to go there. And pretty much like 6 months into playing guitar or something. And then I started singing and everything kind of just progressed with that because I just very quickly realized that I wanted to be a musician after I did it for the first couple times. I was like, this is great. It's very cool. I love it. Love all this music. Love listening to music. It was a simple.
And it's amazing how much, like how much, how do I want to say this? How quickly you grow when you're doing it like 8 hours a day. Like
Oh my
the
God, yeah.
best I ever was at making art at all was when I was in art school and I was doing it 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because
Well, the
it
weird thing
just,
about LaGuardia is you're not even really like they like because I went in for guitar, but you don't play guitar there, which is a very strange
oh,
thing. They
that's weird.
assign you a classical instrument. So I actually played cello in school.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was very strange, which, I kind of understand because it's kind of hard to make playing guitar a group activity unless you're playing in jazz
Oh,
bands
yeah.
or
Okay. Yeah.
stuff like that. So I guess they have to give you a classical instrument so you
Yeah.
can like sit in a group with like 30 people or something.
Yeah.
Um, so I played a lot of cello there and I got into a couple like good extracurricular like things that like featured guitar, like like, oh, kids go to some class for songwriting or like for I never joined the jazz band because I wasn't interested in that back then, but now I really like that kind of stuff.
That was my favorite part in high school. I
Yeah.
love playing in jazz band.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in high school now, that's probably what I would want to do. But I was also back then very like, I guess, because I went to this guitar. I mean, I went to the school under this kind of like idea that I'd be playing guitar there. So I
Yeah.
was very upset when I realized like, oh my God, I'm not even gonna play any guitar here. So I like didn't really like the whole theory aspect of music
Hmm.
or the technical side. So I was kind of rejecting that a lot. But now I love that stuff. It's like great. I try to learn as much of it as I can. So, you know, but the main thing that was great about it was just meeting a bunch of kids that play guitar. It was like
Yeah.
very strange because when I started playing guitar, I didn't really know anyone that played music or anything. And all of a sudden, I'm in a school with like 3,000 people or something, and 1,000 of them play guitar, you know?
That's and none of them are allowed to play
Yeah, and none of them are
guitar.
allowed to play guitar, which is almost even better because they
Yeah.
really want to play.
Um, have you ever been like, oh, you know what this song needs? Cello. I'm gonna add cello to the song. Have you ever
I
had that
actually
kind of?
did
Did you?
add cello to a song once. I mean, I've done like quartets and stuff a lot in my
Yeah.
music, but there was one time for one song that's not released. Maybe I'll release it someday. Um, where I was like, oh, I want to add cello to the song. I rented a cello. I might have even brought it from my school or something and just like played cello on it. It was funny. I hated playing cello in school because the teachers were just insane.
Yeah.
Like the constant tests on cello and reading the music. And, I get it, but it was just like so high stress for no reason. It was looking back, I was like, I can't believe I was so stressed about playing cello.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it was so funny. Like my band director in my high school was amazing. Like everybody loved him. Like
Yeah.
there was a waiting list to get into band, which is
Oh,
unheard of.
yeah. Wow.
And he left, I think, my junior year. Yeah, junior year. And the guy who replaced him was such a douche
Yeah.
that I got to the point he was obsessed with marching band, which I didn't really enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so bad that I told him, I'm like, listen, I'll do concert band, I'll do jazz band, but I'm not doing marching band. And he's like, you have to do that in order to do the others. And I'm like, fine, I won't do any of it. And I dropped all of it senior year.
Oh my God.
And it's like he basically drove me out of music because he just sucked all the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of the teachers were like that in LaGuardia as well, but I mean, I guess I was a total menace to them. I was driving them crazy. I was like I would get so like annoyed that I would have to take these like strange cello tests that
Yeah.
like two minutes before the test I'd like take scissors and like cut the strings off my cello and then show up and be like, the string's broke. I'd have them sit there and rewind the
Oh,
string.
jeez. Okay,
Yeah,
so you're part of the problem.
I was absolutely part of the problem. I was driving them insane all the time.
That's
I'm,
funny.
I'm sure they'd all remember me because I just terrorize them.
Yeah. Like I in asking you about playing cello in a current rock folk song, it made me think. I was like, oh yeah, there's a few years ago, Jack White put out a song. It's called Love Interrupted. And I was blown away because the song has a bass clarinet, and never in my day would I have thought that you could take the bass clarinet, which I played in high school band, and put in a rock song. Like it's insane. Like I'm like that's such a
Totally.
yeah. So, but I mean that's kind of part of that playing. Let's give it a try. Oh no, that didn't work. Let's take it out.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. I mean, all that stuff sounds great in rock music. Like
Yeah.
when people go for it. I mean, so many different bands, even bands that you would never even like. Didn't Nirvana put a cello in something or
Oh, I think
something
so.
once?
One of their
Yeah.
unplugged things or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's great. It's cool. It's
Yeah.
like totally should put those types of instruments in. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah. Yeah. The
so are you going to be touring supporting this album?
I want to be touring. I just played a show like 2 days ago in New York, and I'm just kind of like setting up a bunch of shows, and then I'm heading out to Paris and London to support uh Cat Power playing their like new Dylan cover record thing.
Yeah.
Because I played on that record. I played the rhythm guitar on that Cat Power record. And I played a couple shows with them, but then kind of decided to leave the project to just focus on my own music and trying to promote my record and play shows as much as
Mhm.
I could. But then they invited me to open a couple of the shows, and I would love to do that. So I'm headed out there to do that.
That's
Hopefully, I can
awesome
get.
to play in France. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've opened a lot for Cat Power in the past, so I've gone to play a lot of very interesting places over the years. Yeah.
what would be your one favorite that stands out?
Well, I got to open for them at the Royal Albert Hall, which was very cool.
Wow.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
Um, I got to play some cool venues in New York too. I got to play Webster Hall. I got to play Brooklyn Steel. Um, honestly, we've done like I've done probably over 100 shows in different places with them. So it's
That's awesome.
I honestly can't even remember where I went.
I get that. Yeah.
I remember
It's
being on tour and being like, where am I? I'd be up on stage being like, thank you to this city that we're in, and just having no idea where I am
that
because it's like next day.
who was it? Ace Frehley played here recently, and someone had taken a picture from the balcony, like just off the side of the stage, and there's a huge like 8 by 10 piece of paper on the floor, and just written on that paper in big letters was Plymouth. And they're like, "Can you believe this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can 100% believe that."
Yeah,
Because after like half the time they're not spending time in the town. They roll in maybe the
no,
night before and unpack and set up and do sound check, grab something to eat, and then they're on stage being like, "I don't know where the hell I am," or
yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of it, like on tour, you just eat weird food and you're tired. It's like you wake up and you're just
Yeah.
in a complete daze. And I always spend all my time before shows. I never like I go walk around a little bit, but most of my time before shows is spent practicing and like playing the songs and making sure I'm sounding good and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's just I never get yeah, it's
So
funny.
I love that. I got to find that photo. I can't remember who. I think a friend of mine posted it. I'll have to find it. It's funny. Um, yeah. So now we have to do the part that the public relations people want. Babe, I hear the thunder in your heart. It's coming out. Do we have a release date? I think.
Uh I think sometime next month or the month
Okay.
after that, but between somewhere like that.
Where can people go to find out more? Do you have like social medias, website?
Yeah, I have my Instagram is Arsun Music.
And
Pretty
that's
much I'm Arsun Music everywhere and my name's spelled Arsun.
mhm.
So Arson Music everywhere. My Spotify or Apple Music's a great place to stay updated with the music and probably most active on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm trying to get my TikTok together as well.
Ugh, I feel it. I feel it.
It is what it is.
It's
It's
it
cool. I
is. It's
mean,
fine. It's
people want to be connected to the music and to the artist, and I don't think that's too much to ask, but
no,
that
it's
doesn't
not.
mean that I'm good at
I
it.
just to me it's one of those you finally figure out one and get good results from using one. And right about that time, they're like, "Ooh, there's this new thing called Threads," and you're like, "I don't care."
Man, I
Like
have
I,
not wrapped my head around threads,
yeah,
honestly.
I'm just like, I'm not gonna be an early adopter. I just don't have the time to learn shit and
Yeah.
generate more content. And it's just like I don't have the brain power.
Yeah. I've been trying to generate a lot of content type stuff lately and like, you know, take videos and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
Start generating some songs.
yeah, and
Content.
that's one of those things that's so hard. It's like you could get to that point where you have a great following of you when you're on tour eating your whatever food or doing whatever, and then you're like, oh yeah, and I didn't have any time to write music because I was building my TikTok following. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only so many hours in a day. But Arson, I want to say thanks, man. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, and if you plan on coming out, Boston, South Shore, Mass area, let me know.
I will definitely.
Cool.
I definitely I actually was offered to play out there recently, but it didn't line up. And I was like, damn, I'd really like to go out there. Yeah.
Yeah, out in Boston itself.
Yeah, Boston. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a fun town.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. All right,
Cool,
man.
man.
Thank you so much, listeners. Go check out Arson's new album when it comes out sometime next month. And we'll catch you guys again next week.
Cool. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.